evening. I now call this meeting to order for October 25th, 2022, the hybrid administrative meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. I call to order. Chairman Barboa is appearing virtually via Zoom, as well as Commissioner Quezada, and I, Vice Chair Benson, will be presiding over the meeting. We'll have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Piscotti.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam County Manager, are there any changes or additions to the agenda tonight?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. No, we don't have any additions or changes to the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to proclamations. Operation Greenlight, sponsored by Chair Barboa.
Thank you. Let me, get it in front of me. Sorry, gonna take me a minute. Sorry to not be ready. My internet's a little slow. I'm excited to be presenting this proclamation in support of veterans. I hope everybody will join us in this act to support veterans. Let me get it. Okay. I finally have it. Maybe.
Madam Chair, would you like me to return to you and move to the next
Now I got it. Sorry, I do have it now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your patience. The Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners, sponsored by Commissioner Adrian Barboa and Commissioners Walt Benson, Debbie O'Malley, Stephen Michael Quesada, and Charlene Piscotti. Whereas the residents of Bernalillo County have great respect, admiration, and the utmost gratitude for all of the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas the contributions and sacrifices of the men and women who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and way of life enjoyed by our citizens. And whereas Bernalillo County seeks to honor those individuals who have paid the high price for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas the Bernalillo County Assessor's Office, in conjunction with the New Mexico Department of Veterans Services, offers a state legislative created veterans tax exemption of $4,000 annually off the assessed value of the veteran's property, and a 100% property tax exemption for veterans who are 100% service-connected disabled. And whereas the County Commission recently approved a one-time $300,000 appropriation, which will support the overall mission of historic Fairview Cemetery, located at 700 Yale Boulevard Southeast, in preserving and restoring areas of the cemetery that provide the final resting place for approximately 500 veterans. And whereas the Bernalillo County Unclaimed Indigent Cremation Program, in conjunction with the New Mexico Department of Veterans Services, administers the Forgotten Heroes Program that annually provides a funeral with military honors to any honorably discharged veteran in New Mexico who upon death is unclaimed by family or loved ones. And whereas Bernalillo County holds an annual dinner for Commission District 2 veterans, and veterans also enjoy free access to the fitness centers at county community centers. And whereas the National Association of Counties encourages all counties, parishes, and boroughs to recognize Operation Green Light for veterans. Now, therefore, be it resolved, with designation as a Green Light for Veterans County, Bernalillo County hereby declares from October 25th through Veterans Day, November 11th, 2022, a time to salute and honor the service and sacrifice of our men and women in uniform. Therefore, be it resolved that in observance of Operation Green Light, Bernalillo County encourages its citizens in patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying a green light in a window of their place of business or residence. Done this 25th day of October, 2022 in Bernalillo County, state of New Mexico. Thank you, veterans, for your sacrifice and your commitment, and happy to sponsor this proclamation. Signed, the Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Next, Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation, sponsored by Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I did intend to bring this before the commission in an earlier meeting, and wanted to make sure I did get it done. So this is proclamation in recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day, whereas Indigenous Peoples Day replaced Columbus Day in 2019, a proposal in the making since the International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. And whereas the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples declares the right of Indigenous peoples to, quote, to the dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, histories, and aspirations, which shall be appropriately reflected in education and public information, end quote. And whereas New Mexico is home to the Navajo Nation, 3 Apache nations, the Fort Sill Apache tribe, the Jicarilla Apache Nation, the Mescalero Apache tribe, and 19 pueblos, Acoma, Cochiti, Isleta, Jemez, Laguna, Nambe, Oke, Owinje, Picuras, Pojoaque, San Felipe, San Ildefonso, Sandia, Santa Ana, Santa Clara, Santo Domingo, Taos, Tesuque, Zia, and Zuni. And whereas the indigenous peoples have lived in the lands of Bernalillo County over 10,000 years, farming with the waters of the Rio Grande, and that Bernalillo County is built on these traditional homelands of the original inhabitants of the Americas. And whereas the culture, identity, history of indigenous peoples in Bernalillo County has been assailed through centuries of war, colonization, and enslavement, from the Tigre War through the Spanish missions and the Albuquerque Indian School, and whereas indigenous peoples have contributed without adequate consideration to our community for generations through knowledge, philosophy, agricultural, technology, science, and the arts. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners does hereby honor the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day, and encourages all residents in the county to recognize the thriving contributions and in communities of indigenous peoples in Bernalillo County and everywhere. Done this 25th day of October 22 in Bernalillo County, state of New Mexico, signed by Board of Commissioners Barboa, Commissioner Benson, Commissioner Quesada, Commissioner Piscotti. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you so much, Commissioner O'Malley. Okay, now on to public comment and communications. But before we hear public comment, we will hear communications items 5A and 5B first. 5A, Healthy Neighborhoods ABQ, presented by Courtney Rich.
Thank you. I have a presentation on this computer, but I'm not sure if it's going to read over here.
I think we're pulling it up. There you go.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, we want to thank Commissioner Quesada for the invitation to be able to present this. My name is Courtney Rich. I am the project coordinator for Healthy Neighborhoods Albuquerque. And we are comprised of a community partner, which is Agricultura Network, as well as the anchors are UNMH, Presbyterian, CNM, City of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, APS, and Albuquerque Community Foundation. H&A exists to be able to help be a conduit between the community as well as the anchors. We work on a project-by-project basis to be able to execute with the highest rate of success the projects. Right now, we are working with the farmer infrastructure proposal. So we are facilitating change between the anchor institutions and the local farms to be able to have the nutrient-dense foods be able to be procured by our anchor institutions through our local farming cooperative. Agricultura Network is made up of 48 allied farms and 5 cooperative farms. They have been one of the lead in farming and aggregation and as a largest farming cooperative in the state of New Mexico for over a decade. They have been the only community partner with Healthy Neighborhoods Albuquerque, and it has been wonderful to be able to work with them. We, at this point, have decided to address bottlenecks. The bottlenecks are the fact that anchors cannot purchase local produce from the local farming groups without being able to source year-round as well as being able to have it fit within their budget. We decided to address this by investing in farmer infrastructure. And so today's ask is directly related to that. We've spent over a year and a half doing a cost analysis project to find out the parameters and the thresholds of what needs to be supported so that farmers can be paid ethically and that anchors are able to procure within their budgets. We know it's possible, and this is the pathway. We need to be able to grow out the infrastructure so that these farmers are able to grow year-round, grow specifically for what the anchors need, and then be able to, in turn, give to our most vulnerable. The children and the people within the hospitals and the people who work within the hospital systems can have those foods. This addresses generational wealth. This is also affecting all of the farmers that are within Agricultura Network that are a part of lower income communities. And so the entire idea behind it is that it's impactful and effective for the farmers as well as the anchors and as well as the people who eat this food. We have consistently always worried about how to be able to do this, and we are sitting here giving you the answers that if you invest in the farmers will grow and then the anchors will purchase. We have broken down the price and what they would need to be able to do at the community property of First Choice and Agricultura Network. And we know that we have First Choice letter of support, as well as we have Rio Grande Community Development letter of support, as well as we have UNMH's letter of support currently. We know that the next bottleneck that needs to be addressed is the way to aggregate, which means washing the produce. And the RGCDC is committed to being able to do a first phase construction at their current facility to be able to build out an automated aggregation equipment that Agricultura Network will be able to use to be able to additionally lower that cost so that labor is not an issue. So now we have year-round growth, we're paying the farmers ethically, and we are aggregating it at one of the largest food hubs in the state, and then in turn we have Anchor's commitment to be able to purchase this product. So with that, I just want to thank Commissioner Quezada for hearing us and understanding how important that this project could be, the impact that could have across multiple different families that farm and also that all reside in the Bernalillo County area. And we know that we have the commitment and the engagement with the anchors that is necessary to be able to understand exactly what they need to have grown for them so that we can all work together to be able to make sure that there's nutrient-dense, impactful food that's grown for the most vulnerable. And the last slide is just the letters of support so everyone can see them. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Rich.
Mr. Chair.
Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Quezada.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Healthy Neighborhoods Albuquerque for doing this. We met, and as you all know, Bernalillo County and Albuquerque are very unique to have the Rio Grande that runs through and all this agricultural land. And I think it's even bigger than just, being able to be self-sufficient as a community. And with the city this size, I think this is really an opportunity for economic growth and for people who own properties and who own land to get into a business that's actually viable. And so that's one of the challenges that we have with our growers, is to be able to grow and then get this food and be able to sell the food and be able to be a benefit to the community. It is at this point a benefit to the community, but we think we could do it at a larger scale. I asked Healthy Neighborhoods Albuquerque to do this presentation so we can look at, maybe I know that Bernalillo County is looking at how they could do that better. But, the more we can connect with people who are already connected, with especially the Aquatura, organization, and there's other ones out there too that, and we do have that farmers market that Bianca Encinas looks over on Friday, and that's basically where they have, an opportunity to sell that. I think we could do bigger, we could do better, and so this becomes not only a food source, but it also becomes an economic driver for these communities and for, the North and the South Valley. So I just wanted to, let everybody know why I brought this forward, why I asked them to come, because I think we need to start looking at how do we create this in a bigger, better way. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Quezada. Are there any other questions for Ms. Rich?
Mr. Vice Chair?
Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes, I did have a couple of questions. So this particular budget that you just showed us, this is site-specific?
Yes,
Okay. And what size property is this?
it is an acre.
It is an acre, okay. And so the water source,
It's a well.
it's a well, okay. So this is to get the well up to speed and?
No.
Because there's an irrigation system that's.
Yeah, they already have the well system. They already have the pump system there. They're already growing at this
Okay.
at this site. It's adjacent to First Choice, so they already have a greenhouse and 2 hoop houses. But to be able to be applicable to bring the pricing down so that it meets the anchor institution's needs for budget, we need to increase the amount of space that we grow on to be able to lower that cost and to be able to grow year round on a larger scale. And so there's parameters, and this meets it. So we're asking for money that would fund 2 30 by 96 greenhouses, as well as solar panels, as well as water reclamation systems and storage areas to be able to cure the product. This is an example of sustainable farming that Bernalillo County could be able to be a repeatable process on many different scales that is attending to energy as well as attending to water. And also it is within the middle of the South Valley, which is just an incredible place, and also very close to the South Valley Economic Development Center, where all of this produce would be aggregated, which creates a lower impact, right? Every time it touches a different hand, the price goes up. So we're decreasing that square foot, that mileage challenge by putting it in that place-based or place-specific site.
And who would manage this particular
So H&A would be the recipient of the funding, because both myself and my co-project coordinator would be able to help execute, do cost analysis, implementation, support, but this would go directly to Agricultura Network. If you notice it doesn't even have operations cost in it. It's because this is specifically for Agricultura Network to be able to finish out their entire property that has only been partially done. This builds upon multiple different investments that the Bernalillo County has already given to these organizations. One of them, the Grow the Growers program, already does the open space where they train the farmers on how to become farmers. This could be an extension of that, where Agricultura Network could also teach farmers how to grow within greenhouses and for anchor institutions on a large scale. And so instead of monocropping and reducing the harm on the topsoil, if we're able to control the elements within the greenhouse, we're looking at a totally different sustainable farming practice model.
And is this property owned by the county?
This is owned by First Choice, and that's why it's very important to point out the First Choice's letter of commitment, because they are absolutely committed to having this be that they work in unison with Agricultura Network, and they're able to achieve the same goal of Agricultura Network being able to grow on this large scale, and also for First Choice. So,
Yeah, just, is there a lease agreement with First Choice? Is this?
It's not even going to be a lease agreement. It's mostly going to be donation or a purchase of $1. First Choice has gone through they've gone through different leadership changes this past year, and so there's been a beautiful recommitment, and so this was their basically recommitment letter that they are here, and they want to be able to work with and through with Agricultura Network, and with that, they know that the end goal is to be able to leverage that property to be able to help Agricultura Network be able to achieve this overall goal.
Okay. Well, I'm supportive of this. I mean, the growers is something that I certainly helped to form many years ago. I just wanted to get a sense of what the structure was.
Yeah.
Which I think is important. And it would be important to get some kind of real commitment in terms of property. It takes, in my understanding, if you're going to just do soil amendment, it takes several years for that to, I know you're doing greenhouses, which I think is good. It looks like you've got the water system in place, which is good. But I know it takes a while to change, make the soil ready for agriculture. And so I just want to make sure that there's a long-term commitment from First Choice, because this is an investment that would be, this.
Yeah. No,
Thank you.
It's definitely there. You're welcome.
Commissioner Barboa. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you for bringing this. I definitely support it. I just have a few questions so I understand it all. So you say that the Anchor Institute, you already have commitment from Anchor institutions to purchase the produce? That's what I heard? Yeah. Sorry, I can't see you. So if you're saying yes, please say it out loud.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, it cut out. But I think what you were asking was, do we have commitment from the Anchor institutions? Yes, we do. We have it from UNMH. Presbyterian is stepping forward as well. We also have other Anchor institutions that don't procure, but they want to be at the table, and there's great support from them as well.
And so that's to purchase the produce so like I see that Bernalillo County and the city of Albuquerque purchase our Anchor institutions or whoever could purchase this, but just in its raw form, right? Like not,
Correct.
Just the produce. Okay.
Right. So it would be, first step is raw form, right? Aggregated in raw form. The next step, obviously, there's various bottlenecks that go down to food safety issues that need to be addressed. But I don't know if that's the time and place to talk about it, but there are multiple stages to this project. And I think that it'll be wonderful to see if you guys have interest in, understanding what those next steps are. But I can't speak for anyone because the RGCDC is not here. However, their letter of support is here. But there is multiple stages to this project to be able to create a model in Bernalillo County that is just really incredible, where the South Valley has the largest food hub in the state other than NMSU through Agricultura Network and the food incubator that the SVEDC is, and the infrastructure and partnership and support that is the build out of what they want to do to be able to make sure that they are able to service those in their community that most need it, right? And so this is really needed. And so, yeah, everyone's very much on board.
And how quick, like if you had this funding that you're proposing, how quick could this all get started? Or what, do you have a timeline pending funding?
I think it's as quick as you guys can deploy those funds. This is a turnkey operation. That's also the beauty of it, because they've already been doing it. Agricultura Network has been doing this, right? And Agricultura Network has been working so hard in other areas for funding for operations and various other things that are going to be able to make this all come together. And Rio Grande Community Development Corporation is waiting for, they are securing the funds with Bernalillo County and working on that to be able to do the first phase of infrastructure for aggregation, where instead of Agricultura Network having to Agricultura Network actually doing it by hand, it can be automated. So instead of doing 100 pounds an hour, it can do 4,000 pounds an hour, right? Makes a huge difference.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez?
I just wanted to add that First Choice has received a number of capital outlay appropriations for this project, and the Economic Development Department is working with them and helping to implement them. So we'll work with Aquitude Network and First Choice in implementing with many of the project descriptions that you've heard tonight.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Ms. Rich. Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next to finance. University of New Mexico Hospital Report, first quarter, fiscal year 23, presented by UNMH CEO Kate Becker. Welcome, Ms. Becker.
Oh, thanks. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak tonight. And I do, first of all, want to say thank you for 2 weeks ago when Felix Funes was here to proclaim it Healthcare Security and Safety Officers Week. That made him so proud, and we are just so happy that you were able to do this, and we really wanted to say thank you. It really did mean a lot. Thank you. So our quarterly report is in your packet. I do want to call just a few items to your attention. And I'm going to group these under our 5 pillars, which are people, service, quality, finances, and growth. So first, under people, we just completed our employee engagement survey. So that's a process we go through about every 18 months. The first 6 months, we set a goal for our teams of participation in the survey because we want to hear from as many people as possible. The second 6 months, our goal is action planning around what we learned from the survey. And then the third 6 months, the goal is implementing those action plans. So we just finished that participation section. The survey was open from September 26th to October 10th. We have a really aggressive goal of 80% participation because we do want to hear what people think of us and our opportunities to improve. We actually exceeded that goal and had 83% participation. So we were very excited about that, and that makes us feel really confident as we move into the next phase. We'll get those results in January from Press Ganey. They're our vendor that does the survey for us, and then we'll do action planning, but we can be confident that we've got a good sample from our teams of what we can do well and what we can do better. Second, under quality, on page 9 of our report, we have some good news to share. We saw decreases in both our central line associated bloodstream infections and our catheter associated urinary tract infections. We are now at levels that are better than the national benchmarks in both of those areas, which is important because it means we're doing the right things to help our patients avoid those type of hospital associated infections. Third, under service, the news is not as good to share. On page 11 of our report, you'll see our inpatient satisfaction scores have been trending downward. That is true nationwide, but ours have been trending down a little more aggressively than other places. You're probably aware from hearing from me earlier that in New Mexico, we're unique. We're still over capacity by a significant amount in the hospital, which means we've had patients in alternative care sites and hall beds. And so we've had some struggles because we know our doctors and nurses are providing great care, but it's hard to communicate in that environment and really make patients feel satisfied when they are in that kind of a situation. So you've heard a little bit from me about our Right Care, Right Place, Right Time initiative, which is working on really getting ourselves to that correct capacity. I'm happy to say that as of last week, we had closed the last of our hall beds, so that's exciting. So we are expecting to see some improvement in those satisfaction scores over the next few months. Fourth, under finances. We continue to be challenged, particularly with the high cost of labor. We are seeing some improvement there. As you can see from our income statement, which is on page 6, at the end of the first quarter of FY23, which was September 30th, we were at just under a $20 million negative bottom line. So you probably remember that for the last several months of FY22, we were running at about a $10 million per month operational loss. I'm happy to report we've been able to roll off quite a bit of our contract labor, and we're now at about a $5 million per month operational loss, which is better, but obviously not where we want to end up. We do expect that gap to continue to narrow as we get through the end of this year and continue to roll off those travelers. So we've been able to bring that number down by about 40% through this point, and we'll continue to bring that down over the next several months. We did actually end FY22 with a small positive bottom line, just under $6 million, which is significant. Although we had those monthly operational losses, we did have a number of one-time pickups that helped offset that. We do have one still outstanding large one-time item that'll come in FY23, and that is about a $40 million item from FEMA. So we are still waiting for that funding to be obligated. And finally, under growth, lots of work continues, and we were really happy to participate in the groundbreaking for the county's Crisis Triage Center. We're very excited about that. And we have the ribbon cutting coming up on the new Comprehensive Movement Disorder Center and new Senior Health Clinic. That's November 1st. And the Senior Health Clinic will increase access to primary care for citizens of Bernalillo County and our senior population who really need that additional care. So we're very excited about that. Work continues on the new critical care tower, which I'm sure you've seen. We're pouring the last floor now, so that's beginning to get enclosed. And we're hopeful that the voters of New Mexico will support GO Bond number 3 on the ballot next week, which will be a replacement for our Children's Psychiatric Center, so that we can increase access to behavioral health services for the kids and adolescents of New Mexico. So with that, I just want to say thank you again, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Becker. I do have a question about the traveling nurses, because I know that's been a crippling expense for y'all. Where are you at now with, are you just getting rid of nurses? Are you hiring new permanent nurses? How are you solving that expense problem?
In 3 ways, really. One of them is getting back closer to our licensed capacity. We're able to reduce the number of travel nurses. One is by bringing in our own core staff, which we have had a significant amount of success over the last several months in recruiting. It was kind of nice to see walking down the hall the other day outside the badging office, a whole line of people there to get their new badges, so we're excited about that. And then the third is reducing the dollar rate per hour that we're paying to that contract labor. So we've been able to bring that rate down by almost 50% over the last 6 months. So we're currently getting closer to where we need to be from a financial perspective.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you.
I did have a question, sorry.
Oh.
Trying to do my hand.
Sorry, I didn't see the camera. Thank you.
It's okay. No, thank you. I just wanted to make sure, and I don't know that I actually have a question, but and maybe other commissioners actually could chime in, but I did have some constituents ask about the mill levy and where, do you all hold community, and I'm also on that healthcare task force that I haven't been able to make the last couple of meetings. So I guess I'm asking, what is the community input for mill levy? And I see the expenses here on page 7, so obviously it's being used. But I had some constituents ask me about community input on the mill levy. I don't know if I'm actually asking a good question.
So as you know, the mill levy will be up in November of 2024. And so we will continue working with the county over this next 24 months and with the Indian Health Service and the All Pueblo Council of Governors, because it is a 3-party contract, to make sure that we are on board with all of the expectations that we need to meet and the deliverables that we need to provide. And you know from being on the healthcare task force that some of the things we've really been focused on recently have been making sure that we have a good self-pay policy, a good discount policy, good financial assistance and support. We put a lot of emphasis in that area over the last several months, working with the Center for Law and Poverty, and really thinking about how we can be thoughtful in our communications with our patients so that we're doing a better job of that. So we'll continue to be meeting with the county and IHS and the APCG as we get closer to the mill levy to kind of build out and making sure that we're using that money in a responsible way. I want to say again, and I say this at every new employee orientation, we recognize what a tremendous gift that is and that we need to be good stewards of that support and trust that the voters of the county have placed in us.
Thank you so much. I always appreciate your leadership, Ms. Kate Becker.
Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you have any other questions? Thank you. And also, Madam Chair, if you do have a question, sometimes the camera doesn't turn on for me, so maybe just tap your microphone and it should pop up. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you, Chair.
All right, now on to, thank you, Dr.
Thanks.
Becker. Appreciate your report. Now on to public comment. You'll have 2 minutes to share your comments. You will then be notified when your time is up. For those participating in Zoom, you will be muted after those 2 minutes and move to the waiting room. Should any of the commissioners have follow-up questions to your comments, you will have an opportunity to answer. Julianne, how many do we have signed up to speak tonight? And please call the first name.
Mr. Chair, we have 10 signed up this evening, all in person. There are no Zoom participants. And I'm going to call your name in 3. So when I call your name, if you can make your way down to the podium and state your name for the record before you begin speaking. The first is Don Schrader, followed by Jan Cocos, followed by Geraldo Sionello,
Don Schrader. Prophet Martin Luther King Jr. damned the Vietnam War in his most controversial speech, A Time to Break Silence, on April 4th, 1967, exactly 1 year to the day before he was assassinated. King damned the U.S. mass murder of Vietnamese people. King said, quote, "The greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is my own government," close quote. The New York Times, the Washington Post, many newspapers nationwide condemned King's strong message of truth. Many whites, many blacks, the White House, even most of King's inner circle of black leaders condemned his strong message of truth. He suffered much hatred, many death threats. Why is that speech far less known, far less honored than his I Have a Dream speech? Sadly, most King celebrations today castrate his message. Sadly, most King celebrations do not emphasize his strong stand against nuclear weapons, against the Vietnam War, against the evils of capitalism and the U.S. empire. Martin Luther King Jr. was a prophet, not a politician, not a rock star. He refused to silence his conscience. He refused to sell out his convictions to get the popular support of millions. He refused to sell out his convictions to get the approval of the powerful.
Jan Kokos, Geraldo Cionello, Joshua James Lawrence, John Beltry.
Jan Kokos. As you may recall, I spoke at the October 11th Commission meeting requesting that the Commission provide a count of the number of voting machines that have been recertified in accordance with New Mexico state law prior to being placed into service for this general election. I then followed up 2 days later in writing to Chair Barboa and sent copies to each of the other 4 commissioners requesting a response. I'm hoping, but do not want to assume, that you have taken the appropriate actions to assure the voting machines have been properly recertified. May I please have an update at this time?
I do not have an update for you. Commissioners, do you have any updates? At this time, we do not.
None of you have addressed this issue in any way. I asked 2 weeks ago and followed up in writing, why has there not been some action taken and some report back to your public?
I didn't say that action hasn't been taken. I said I don't have an update for you at this
Okay,
meeting.
when may I expect a response?
It's a good question.
I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't tell you that time right now. I'll be in touch with you through the email personally,
Okay.
and we'll get an update for you.
Okay. Voting is underway, folks, so would you please address this at your first convenience? This is a legal issue which I would appreciate your attention to right away. Thank you.
John Beltry, Ramona Goolsby, Carlos Benavides. Again, when I state your name, if you can make your way down to the podium.
Good evening, Commissioners. I think we have some documents to hand out. Did you hand them out already? Thank you very much. You have 2 documents. John Beltry, by the way, Election Integrity Team Lead for Sandoval County. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to come see each of you and speak with you again now for the 5th time. Rule number one, of course, is to solve a problem, we have to understand the process. I want to read a Dear John letter, first of all, and this is a letter I just received in the past week. It says, hello, John, you may have already heard, but I want to make sure that you knew that the following came out of the Torrance County special meeting this afternoon. This was dated on 20th of October at 6:44 p.m. Torrance County Commissioner's audit of their primary shows differences between the hand tally and the SOS, Secretary of State, totals as high as 25%. Torrance County, 83 voters were no longer on the rolls 1 month after the primary. They may have never been there in the first place. Only 1,600 votes in this county. They're missing 5% of their votes. 44 addresses could not be found by the county commissioners. County Assessor's Office. The Secretary of State would not allow Torrance County commissioners to see the original ballots and force them to use audit copies. Could this be because she knew that the tabulators can print on ballots and she doesn't want them to find out? Best of all, 24 of the Dominion tabulator SD cards from the 2022 primary have been entered into evidence with the Sheriff's Department. The machines, I'm afraid to say, are probably short-lived. I'm sure that Sandoval County and Bernalillo commissioners would love to hear about this. Sincerely, Aaron Clements. The other document that I gave you is a 57-page document. It's in depth, it's factual, it's statistical, it's comprehensive, and it was a report that was shared with all the commissioners throughout the entire state about a year ago. The copy I provided you tonight is for you to take another look at and to kind of see the things that we've worked on. Remember, I'm a bipartisan. I'm here for all the people, and I don't represent any one party. I'm here for the good of all of us, and I just want us to do the right thing. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Geraldo Chunello, I forgive you. I know you skipped me, but it's okay. And first of all, I want to thank you, Madam Chair and County Commissioners, for serving our community and allowing us to practice our First Amendment rights. And again, my name is Geraldo Chunello. I'm a Pacific Islander, American Filipino, alternative health doctor, and minister. I am a first generation and concerned for the next generation of our children and grandchildren, and have family members reside in Albuquerque. Most of you guys are aware of this election handbook. On page 135, 1-9-7.7, voting system certified for use in state election shall, in Part D, and I quote, be a standalone non-network election system, and I end quote. Therefore, I'd like to mention election integrity and fairness, which we have no confidence in the voting process. I do not consent to the use of illegal voting systems. Did you know the New Mexico election has not been certified since 2017? Such a 5-year lapse would never be tolerated in any other industry. Otherwise, everyone involved would be fired and perhaps even go to jail. As Bernalillo County citizens and constituents, all we want is a fair and honest election. We just want the truth. Is that asking much? Wouldn't you want that too? According to our research, we have reason to believe that the numbers do not add up. And as John Belton mentioned earlier, according to the Torrance County manager, did you know that the tabulators counted more voters than ballots in the Torrance audit of the 2022 primary? This is a nonpartisan and American issue. Again, numbers do not add up. As a poll watcher challenge in the last 2 years, I noticed election anomalies, fraud in our voting system. According to Seth Keshel, a veteran who's highly respected Army intelligence captain.
Mr. Schumann, that's 2 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ramona Goolsby, Carlos Benavides, Jennifer Culver.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ramona Goolsby, and I am from Sandoval County. I'd like my comments and information to be on the record. I have provided some handouts for the Commissioners, County Clerk, County Attorney, and County Manager. I am not an attorney, but a truth seeker. The first item is a communication I received via IPRA from Union County between the clerk and the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is responding to the Union County Clerk's request for clarification because her constituents are concerned about the voting machine certification. Item 3, in the Secretary of State's own words, there are currently no voting systems in the country that are certified to 2.0 because, as see item 2, they can't even test to the standard yet. The problem is there are some states that have not codified these standards, but New Mexico did. New Mexico Election Code 1-9-14 A, B, C, and E states shall be tested by an independent authority and shall comply with all requirements in the election code and the most recent voluntary voting system guidelines adopted by the United States Election Assistance Commission. The most recent voluntary voting systems guidelines are 2.0. They were adopted in February 10, 2021. I have provided the title page so that you can look it up and read for yourself. The most recent independent testing done by the SOS on the voting machines was August 24, 2017, and Pro-V&V's own certification had lapsed at the time of testing. There is a copy of the title page for you as well. There are other items, other codes that have also been lapsed. 1-9-7.4B, the voting system that does not comply with all requirements in the election code and the most recent voluntary system shall be decertified. I have provided all of that copy for you and underlined the pertaining codes for you as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Carlos Benavides, followed by Jennifer Culver, followed by Amy Curtis.
All right, for the record, this is a public notice to the Board of Commissioners of the County of Bernalillo County. My rights are being violated for unsubstantiated claim of harassment. And that's from John Grubasic. There's no police report, no charges filed, no statement under penalty perjury, and no court ruling against me. But John has ruled that I am harassing employees here at the Bernalillo County building on the second floor. I made a complaint to you about that, and you sent it to John, and he went to John Grubasic to say it was me harassing the employees instead of me getting battered. And now he's made a protocol that is violating my rights, because all it is just hearsay of me harassing the people. Like I said, there's no police statements, no statements of under penalty perjury or court rulings that I've been harassing anybody. But yet, the special assistant attorney has made that, I believe you guys have the protocol in front of you restricting my rights from coming in here. I can't come in here unless I make an appointment. So if I need to use a bathroom, I got to make an appointment to come in here to use the bathroom, to get a drink of water, because they don't want me recording. Now I don't know where the due process is in this, where they can just make a ruling that you're harassing people, and we're going to make rules against you. Do you have any proof of this?
Mr. Benavides, your time is up.
Okay, but I was just wondering, can he answer the question? Does he have any proof of the harassment?
Mr. Chair, point of order. The speaker needs to direct his questions to the chair, to the commissioners only.
Oh, to the commission. Okay, does he have any proof or of the harassment that I'm
unaware, but your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer Culver, followed by Amy Curtis, followed by Tam Namiski.
Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. My name's Jennifer Culver. I'm a resident of Bernalillo County. You've heard the Torrance County, New Mexico audit referenced a couple of times tonight. I'm going to explain a couple of things about that. An informal audit of the 2022 primary election was done in that county. It's a over 2-hour presentation, and I will email to each of you the link so you can watch it. It's very interesting. It was a hand count of copied ballots from all the tabulators used by all 3 parties in all precincts. So Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians all put their ballots into the same tabulators in all the precincts. In all precincts but 1, there were similar party-specific anomalies. What that means is Democrat candidate votes perfectly matched or almost perfectly matched the tabulator votes. The hand count matched the tabulators, matched the Secretary of State. Libertarians, being small numbers, were high percentages off, even though they were low numbers of votes. But the Republican candidates were the interesting thing. They were consistently as high as 25% off, meaning that in some cases, Republican candidates got 25% more votes recorded by the tabulators than we had ballots for, 25%. In statewide races, that's hundreds of ballots that were not there that the tabulator claimed votes were counted for. So the machine added 25%. That's either the tabulators or the election management system. Thank you.
Amy Curtis, followed by Tana Minsky.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Curtis. I'm a Bernalillo County resident, mother of 4 and grandmother of 7. I have nothing prepared in writing, but I'm just speaking from the heart tonight. So I just wanted to say that I don't know if any of you have children or grandchildren. I don't know. It can be a handful at times. And when I've had them together on a weekend, 2 of them want to go to the movies and 2 of them want to go to the water park. So there's a lot of divisiveness, a lot of contention, arguing. So what do? Okay, Saturday we go to the movies and Sunday we go to the water park. We make it fair. And I think one solution with all the proof, with all the contention, all the discussions of things that have gone on in different parts, not all, but in different voting areas, there's something wrong and something's not right. So in order to make it fair, we should have hand counting as well as machine counting. And it would solve our problem, and it would make you all look very, very favorable in letting us all have a side in this. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ted Niemiecki. Excuse me, I'm under the water. Anyway, why politicians don't look eye to eye? Specifically, I'm addressing to Debbie O'Malley. Buying old psychiatric hospital property, ruins. You couldn't get inside with no way to get inside. It's 2 acres. Now, another hand, selling county assessor office 2 acres here, prime 1 acre, about 1 acre, prime land in downtown for $680,000. Cynthia went almost $2 million. So that's where is problem. Yes, here is biggest problem. It's lots of land all over. people don't pay attention in the county. Most people don't want to get involved in it either. They are afraid to speak up to true. That's what is it, speaking to true. Taxes as highest in the state of New Mexico, Bernalillo County. What bothers me mostly? 4% mandatory every year. That's a dictatorship. That's not in free country. UNM Hospital, look at what's going on. Construction, big monopoly. Treating people inhumanely, throwing out very sick. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please provide resolution numbers for items 6A, 6D, 6F, 6I, and 6J, and ordinance numbers for items 6K through 6Q. The consent agenda has been published and made available to the public. Therefore, I move to approve the consent agenda. But first,
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chair. For item 6A1, FR 2022-109, for 6A2, FR 2022-110, 6A3, FR 2022-111, 6A4, FR 2022-112, 6D, 2, FR 2022-113, 6F, 2, FR 2022-114, 6F3, FR 2022-115, 6I, AR, wait, are we doing that one?
yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. 6I, AR 2022-116, 6J, AR 2022-117, 6K, Ordinance 2022-29. Oops, did I mess up? Am I going through all of the sixes, Julianne?
Yes, under consent, correct.
I apologize. 6K, Ordinance 2022-29, 6L, Ordinance 2022-30, 6M, Ordinance 2022-31, 6N, Ordinance 2022-32, 6O, Ordinance 2022-33, 6P, Ordinance 2022-34, 6Q, Ordinance 2022-35. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, having made the motion, do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. All those in favor say yes.
Yes. Aye.
All those
Excuse me.
who say no? Yes, Julianne.
Hi.
Go ahead.
I signed up for public comment on one of the consents. May I have a chance to speak?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, public comment is closed. However, it's at the discretion if you want to allow it. Our consent agenda doesn't have a separate public comment period.
Ma'am, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Peggy Starr, and I'd like to comment on 6I.
Yes. Would you limit your comment to 2 minutes?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Thank you. 6I regarding 1543 Bridge. It is for demolition of the property. So I wanted to talk about, number one, first of all, there is no imminent danger to the public. It is boarded, fenced, secured, and monitored. It is a building that was run as a business caught fire by the neighbor's property. And I wanted to just give a status update. I've been working since the fire to rehabilitate the property. My challenge has been in the time frame parameters, working with the county assessors, planning and zoning department. The challenge has been to rebuild due to the pandemic. There have been challenges with contractors, building materials, and so forth. However, currently I have a contract proposal and contract with a GB98 contractor who I consider a friend, but also I've worked with for the past 20 years, who I'm contracted with to continue the project. I also have an engineer's analysis and a reanalysis that states that the building is rehabilitatable. And that there is actually very little damage, less than what originally was assessed, which is good news for me in terms of fiscal and financial in the positive way. And also, I had a potential investor who has since left as an option, but I have now a purchase agreement with a buyer who wishes to buy the property and continue the rehabilitation where I left off. He's also here for public comment. And another part of the update is that tomorrow, the main challenge, which was getting the architect,
Please finalize your comments.
Yes. An architect is required to get the permit to build, which has been the challenge. We have that appointment set for tomorrow. So we're ready to just continue, move on. And so my ask is that you reject or at least defer this part of the consent in 6I so that I can continue.
Is well over. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions by the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Quesada, and then Chair Barboa.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Part of what we're trying to do is get people to move forward and fix these properties. And it sounds to me like she's trying to make that happen. I don't know if staff is there to comment on that, but, as this being in my district, I would like to defer it. And see what happens with the architect and see what happens with the purchaser and see if we can push this to the next meeting just to see that, if she's able to make headway. Part of this is not, we're not trying to do this as a punitive things to my community. And, what we're trying to do is get people to move forward on properties. And the ones that we do tear down, nobody does move forward. And it sounds like to me that, she's making a valiant effort. She even showed up to this meeting tonight, to fight to give herself some more time. And, I would just like to move for a deferral till the next meeting. And then so we could get an update to see what's happening on that. But I would like staff to, give us what would be, determined time of once she's got some things in place, what is our policies and how many other options does she have moving forward? Because if she's selling the property, we got to make sure that the new purchaser knows what's going on and that they only have X amount of time to execute these improvements and updates. This is a beneficial to the neighborhood. That's why we're doing it. It's going to raise the value of her property and the properties around her. And so we're doing this for the benefit of the people on Isleta. So with that being said, Mr. Vice Chair, I would entertain a deferral.
Thank you, Commissioner Quesada. Commissioner Barboa, you were next. Oh, and real quick.
Yeah, I was going to just do the same thing. We have to first remove it from the consent agenda, so I can make a motion to remove from the consent agenda.
Okay.
I was going to comment on the same thing that Commissioner Quesada was asking for.
Okay, so Commissioner Quesada made the motion and Madam Chair seconded the motion. Also, Commissioner Quesada, Mr. Tafoya is here to speak, but is that still necessary if we defer this item?
I'm just making the point to say that I think we need I don't know, Julianne maybe can advise, but I think we.
Mr. Chair, if we're going to entertain further discussion, we should remove it off consent to its appropriate spot on the agenda, and then we can proceed with the consent agenda vote.
Great. And Mr. Tafoya will ask for your feedback once we move it off of the consent agenda. Thank you. Okay, do we get a vote? All right, Madam Clerk, can you call the vote?
My apologies, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Quesada motioned it. Who seconded? Was it Commissioner Barboa?
Madam Chair, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner O'Malley?
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada?
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti? Aye. Chair Barboa?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair Benson?
Aye.
And for the record, that item will be moved to adoption of resolution as item 7E.
Mr. Chair, we'll renumber the consent agenda accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Okay, are there any other questions regarding the consent agenda?
And my apologies again before we vote. If we can renumber, go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair. As a result of the deferral of item 6I, excuse me.
Yes, 6I.
Yeah, as a result of deferring that, item 6J becomes AR 2022-116.
Thank you. And okay, and then we voted on that, right? So now we're on to the next item.
Back on the consent agenda.
So you voted on the deferral. Now you vote on the consent as published.
Thank you. Thank you, Julianne. Madam Clerk, can you call the vote for the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner O'Malley?
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada?
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti? Aye. Madam Chair Barboa?
Aye.
Mr. Chair Benson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Good question. Commissioner O'Malley, so that item now becomes 7E, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Well, let me check first. Hold on.
Okay. Next item, adoption of ordinance amendment to county code. This is pedestrian safety ordinance. I make a motion, I am the sponsor here, to introduce and approve for publication a pedestrian safety ordinance added to Chapter 54, Article 2, Offenses Against Public Safety, Section 54 to 34. And just to explain what this is essentially Commissioner Quesada offered an ordinance for water safety to protect lives when it comes to flooding and camping that's happening around water areas, the sequias and ditches. This is a continuation of that, with New Mexico being #1 in the nation with pedestrian deaths. This is to the same purpose is to limit unnecessary deaths revolving around camping in pedestrian areas, as well as medians. And with that, are there any questions?
Mr. Vice Chair, I do have some questions about this.
Sure.
So I just want to be clear on what it is and what it isn't. So, so someone who is asking for money at an intersection isn't the same as someone who's camping on the intersection. So what happens when someone is asking for money? I mean, how does this address that? I understand the issue about pedestrian safety. However, I don't want to also, people who are experiencing homelessness have enough problems. And so I also don't want to make it something punitive in addition to their already challenged lives. So if you could explain that, please.
Sure, yeah, good question. And this isn't about camping on medians. This is about standing on medians, whether they're asking for money or or anything else if it's dangerous. So so the purpose is to reduce either traffic accidents that happen when cars are, if a car has to avoid people on medians, or if people on medians are stepping into traffic, or if traffic is dangerous and a car could hop a curb and hit a pedestrian on a median. So it goes beyond the camping. That's good clarification.
So how is that determined whether an intersection is dangerous or not? I mean, who makes that determination?
Actually, I've worked with Ken Martinez on this, identifying the dangerous intersections in the county and the unincorporated parts of the county specifically. This also does not apply to individuals who are there to express any free speech, as well as any law enforcement or first responders that might be there as well.
So just curious, because free speech is also asking for money. So if that doesn't affect people who want to exercise free speech, how does that work?
If it's a dangerous intersection, they can move to the street corners and not be on the medians.
That's for people who are exercising their free speech.
This is going out for public comment and modifications. So,
no, I was just curious about it. I mean, because you're right. It is to be considered. It's going out for public comment. So, I just thought I'd highlight some of those things. I think it's going to be very important to be very clear, because if we're not, then it's not going to be something that we could, enforce, right? So, I just want to, go there. So.
Right. No, and good point, Commissioner O'Malley. And I certainly don't want to create an ordinance that is unenforceable. The whole purpose is to reduce fatalities and accidents, whether it's an individual who's avoiding somebody who's created an obstacle and smashes into another car. And then that never becomes a statistic, but damage has been done and the population is at risk. So that's the purpose of this, and we do need to be clear.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yeah, yes. Commissioner Barboa.
Thank you, Chair Benson. I am wondering, I guess, what is the penalty for somebody in violation of this? What would be the penalty?
The penalty is being asked to move. Excuse me. The penalty is to be asked to move from that situation.
So that's what, so law enforcement, right, only law enforcement would be made aware of a person, or might see a person in this dangerous situation, and then just ask them to move. There's no arrest.
Correct.
Okay, and then I was trying to read it. I think it was something you said, not that I read, that I guess that's what worries me. But they're asked to move. But they're not arrested or given any kind of written. I think here it says written, but that it's still not like a show up to court or penalty. Like, I just worry that we're doing more of that.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. I think that's the only question I have. And this is 30 days where this is introduction, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Quesada.
So basically, I think it's, and I just want to clarify for myself, is to try to get people from out of the mediums and onto the corner where the sidewalk, because the sidewalk's a public way, and the median, sorry, I always call it a medium. I don't know, it's from the west side. The median sorry. The median is a dangerous place, but, you know, they could be on the side. I know up here, sometimes, you know, we have people in the median and, you know, I've seen them put themselves in danger a lot. And then I'll go down to where Coors is, where it's a busy traffic. They know not to get in the median because it's super dangerous there, and they're at the corner. So what they can do is they could ask them to leave the median and please do, you know, exercise their free speech on the public sidewalk on the corner. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Vice Chair.
Commissioner Quezada, I kind of equate it to like motorcycle helmets. If you have a motorcycle helmet on, you're potentially limiting the freedom of speech with displaying how you appear or speaking. But it's not about free speech. It's about keeping people safe. So that's exactly it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Vice Chair, well, did you?
Commissioner Quezada, or O'Malley.
Sorry, Commissioner Piscotti wanted to speak.
Commissioner Piscotti, please.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the pedestrian safety aspect of this because, yeah, I know it's in my district, in the city part, so I know this ordinance wouldn't affect that, but at Central and Tramway, I know that there's always people. It scares people. It scares me when I'm driving that somebody's going to fall out into the street and be hit. So I totally understand the pedestrian safety aspect of this. And being asked to move, I think, really is a good idea for the person who is like on the edge of that sidewalk, as well as for drivers, because I know nobody wants to hit a person. And, you know, I know this is for introduction for publication, so I'd like to hear people's comments. I know when the city of Albuquerque put out a proposed ordinance, there were some legal issues that had to be dealt with. So yeah, you know, I support the concept. I like that there's no legal penalty, that it doesn't criminalize people for being too close to the street or anything like that, that it looks out for people's safety. So, so thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Piscotti. Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm happy to move it forward. I think that there's some issues with it. I have some concerns about it, but I can certainly talk about those when it comes back for final. And it is about the civil rights, those kinds of things. That's one of the reasons that, you know, you have to be kind of careful about this stuff, because then, you know, it'll get where it's not, you know, we can't pass something because of this, for this reason. And so that would be my concern as well. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. Can I receive your nomination as a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti.
Aye.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair Benson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Vote passes. Thank you. Next, County Manager, Employment Relations and Fire Chief Ordinance Amendments. Julianne Baca to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Julianne Baca, Commission Services Manager. I am here before you tonight to introduce two amendments to the county code for cleanup purposes as part of the first motion and the second motion, as part of the first motion. And the second motion is presented in anticipation of county charter amendments should they be approved by the voters. The first motion is to introduce amendments to the Employment Relations Ordinance to remove reference to a since rescinded 2011-60 administrative resolution, and also to remove duplicated sections. The resolution was rescinded in 2016. These amendments are intended for clerical cleanup of the county code only. The second motion is to introduce amendments to the county code as it pertains to the concurrence of the fire chief. In August, the board unanimously approved amendments to the county charter, one of which is to remove the BCC concurrence requirement for the fire chief. The county charter amendments are now before the voters, and should the voters approve the amendments, introducing this change aligns with cleaning up our code to match the charter as per the first motion. Should the voters approve the charter amendments, these amendments will return for final adoption consideration as an ordinance at the December 13 BCC meeting. Should the charter amendments for whatever reason not be approved by the voters, only the employee relations ordinance will return in December. The intent of bringing this forward now is for the current commission body to adopt changes you approved in the charter, as well as to properly align the county charter amendments with the rescinded resolution. I would also like to take this moment to clarify some misinformation that the concurrence of the MDC chief was removed from the charter by the county manager. This is not the case. This requirement was never included in the county charter or code. However, the prior two MDC chiefs were brought before the board for concurrence as a courtesy to the board as well as to the public and MDC staff. Thank you for your consideration, and I stand for questions.
Thank you, Julianne. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Piscotti.
Thanks. I'm actually really confused by this, specifically in regards to the MDC chief. So does this, are you saying that the ballot item that people are voting on doesn't address the MDC chief? Or you're saying that was never actually in our county charter?
Actually, both. So correct. So the concurrence of the MDC chief is not in the charter as it was adopted in 2016 and effective in 2017. So this has no implications for that.
Okay. And I guess I'm confused even further because I saw the timeline of those resolutions and ordinances, and it looked like the concurrence for MDC chief was supposed to be in there in 2016, but somehow it just wasn't added in, like it had been voted on and approved, but then it was never added in. Is that?
So we need to ensure that we're talking about the two separate documents. So we have a county charter and we have a county code. So it was never in the county charter as it was originally adopted, and is not part of the amendments that are before the voters today. What was adopted in 2016 was an amended concurrence process from a prior resolution from 2011, and that was not codified into the county code, so rendering it invalid. So at current, we have two concurrence resolutions that are no longer valid.
Mm-hmm. Did we ever find out why it wasn't added into?
We did some extensive history looking at the first, we did some extensive history research looking at the first resolution in 2011 that precedes all of our time here. So it was a little difficult to kind of track that, but it was adopted towards the end of 2011. It did not get codified until mid-2012, so I don't know what that disconnect was. I'm assuming it was the same for 2016 as well. So it just didn't take the necessary steps to become codified.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'd like to hear more of what happened, about why it didn't become codified. So tell me again, so this doesn't address the MDC chief at all, because at some point in 2016, that was just left out. It wasn't added.
Absolutely.
In. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that and helping me to understand that. I guess I personally, I have issues with the MDC chief not coming up for concurrence, because ultimately the Board of Commissioners, oversees MDC, which is one of the biggest things we focus on here. So I just wanted to say that in public, that I do have issues with this, and the fact that it's coming up for a vote 2 weeks before the election, the timing just seems.
No, I can understand that, and there is an intent for that. So because you as the current board adopted the changes to the charter, our intent was to kickstart the introduction, because this is just for introduction, so that when it does come back for final adoption, the election will have already occurred. And so if for whatever reason that the charter is not adopted by the voters, then motion 2 will go away. Because we will still want to attempt to match the 2 documents. And we wanted the opportunity for the current sitting board to have a vote, not only because you approved the changes to the charter, you're now adopting the changes to the code.
Okay. Did we actually vote to approve the changes to the charter? Because I thought it was just to put that on the ballot, put that out to the voters.
So you as a board adopt those changes. So we would not propose ballot language without the support of the board to put something before the voters. So you as the board approve those changes to put forth to the voters along with the ballot question.
Okay, yeah, I guess it was my understanding that what we approved was putting it to the voters, not that we were specifically approving those amendments.
I'll defer to Ken on that, but.
That's correct. It's akin to doing a constitutional amendment because now we're a charter home rule. So the charter is our constitution for Bernalillo County. So those questions were put and you guys voted on it and decided to put them to the public. The only way to amend the charter would be upon a majority vote of the board and then going to the public at the next general election or special election if there's one available. So that's what's happening now. So the question was put to the public will determine.
Right, okay, okay. Okay, thank you. I think that it seems very convoluted to me, but I appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Piscotti. Are there any other questions? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Did we move it?
No.
I move approval.
Thank you. I'll second. Would you please call the vote, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti.
No.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Aye.
Mr. Chair Benson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Julianne. All right, economic development. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. The notice of intent to adopt an ordinance under the Local Economic Development Act related to Sawmill Bellama Properties LLC.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, the Economic Development staff requests approval for publication of notice of intent to adopt an ordinance under the Local Economic Development Act related to the Sawmill Bellama Properties LLC. This is for a LEDA increment, includes the development of 3 new additions to the existing Sawmill district, to include Chaco Residences, an extended stay hotel, the Sawmill Hotel, and Sawmill Mixed Use Development. I'd like to also note we have Mr. Jim Long here this evening who would like to provide a brief presentation on the overview of the district. If we could do that now at this time.
Yes, please.
And we have the presentation on the computer.
Welcome, Mr. Long.
Marcos, if the gentleman can introduce himself, and then I can move it over. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and make some remarks on this project for you. So my name is Jim Long. I'm the founder of Heritage Hotels, and my life's work has been devoted to preserving and advancing our cultural heritage of New Mexico. The Sawmill District is a very important project that speaks to my passion about New Mexico and my desire to continue to see New Mexico grow and prosper. So the Sawmill District projects, and before I speak to those projects, I also want to thank the Bernalillo County Commission for its support of our Phase 1 projects, including Hotel Chaco and Sawmill Market. These were projects that have been built over the last 5 years in this district, and they've been highly successful. They surpassed the expectations that we all had for these projects. The projects now provide economic support for over 300 permanent jobs and a wide variety of economic opportunities given solely to New Mexicans. So we're very proud of these projects, and thank you in advance for your prior support on those projects. This particular area is part of a MRA as well as and that's a metropolitan redevelopment zone, as well as a federal opportunity zone. So it's an area that's considered in need of investment, it's considered somewhat blighted, and it's an important part of public support for the future. So the three projects that we have, phase 2, so to speak, really is built around some of the foundational aspects that we've created in the district of having unique hotels that tell a special story about our cultural heritage, unique dining, unique entertainment. You can see a beautiful picture on the top right of Hotel Chaco, which has received international acclaim for its unique style, the way that it expresses some of our cultural heritage, in this case, the Chacoan civilization, which is an amazing story in and of itself. So we're very proud of the success of these projects. Here's a site plan that showcases the location of the three new projects. One is H, one is A, and one is J. So we're looking at essentially the intersection of Bellama and 20th Street. At that intersection, sort of on a diagonal there, you can see Hotel Chaco. Can everybody see where that's located on this site plan? Right across the street to the north of that is actually Sawmill Market. So to the left is the project called Sawmill Market Hotel. Eventually we'll have an official name for that project. But this is a hotel that's designed to attract a younger demographic to our city. Hotel Chaco has received tremendous support, but particularly from an older generation, I would say the baby boomer generation, of which I'm certainly a part of. And it's a lovely hotel. It continues to do quite well. But we also need to provide opportunities for our younger generation. And so this hotel is, I would call it the rebellious sister to Hotel Chaco. To the right, Block A is the Chaco Residences. And this is to provide our guests that stay with us a longer stay opportunity. Hotel Chaco was built for relatively short stays. So this particular hotel will give our guests an opportunity to stay with us months at a time. We have many people from the film industry that stay with us for many, many months, but we're not really set up to accommodate those longer term stays. So Chaco Residences, Block A, will provide that opportunity. Block J is the multifamily project of approximately 140 units. The hotel, by the way, has approximately 120 units, and Block A, Hotel Chaco Residence, approximately 100 units. Those numbers are still being finalized now as we continue the design. Block J, again, 140 units, and this is to provide people an opportunity to live in this district. We have a beautiful affordable housing area, the Sawmill Land Trust, that Commissioner O'Malley did such an incredible job of helping to oversee and establish, and we love having this affordable housing community right next door to this development because it provides incredible workplace housing. So many of those 300 people that work in our district right now live right next door. So it's just a fantastic situation. And of course, we have many of the city's amenities located right nearby here. 3 of the most heavily visited museums in the state, Old Town, the Biopark, etc. So we're very excited to have this location opportunity. What we're trying to do with these projects, and it represents a private investment of over $200 million. So it's one of the largest private investments in our state, is to really raise the bar in terms of the quality of architecture, of urban planning, of creative placemaking. These are some of the objectives we had. We sought New Mexicans to design these locations, New Mexicans that had grown up here, studied in many places, and practiced in cities across the United States. So we sought them out. We are working with 2 architects, one named Ben Anderson. He's the grandson of Robert O. Anderson. You may know that name from the business school at University of New Mexico. And another architect, Molly Calvani, that practices with her father, but spent a decade in New York practicing in that environment as an interior architect. So they're collaborating on some of these projects. And I'm going to share with you the first one, which is the Sawmill District Hotel. These projects were sort of conceptualized based on New Mexico geology. So these layers that you see in this project really represent the stratification layers that you see in our mesas. So as the sun moves across the facades, it's really going to transform throughout the day. It's going to be quite exceptional. The ground floor of all of our buildings is devoted to retail, entertainment, activities, art associated with creative placemaking, and 100% of these ground floor spaces will be devoted to New Mexican businesses. We are not seeking any national brands for this development. We want all of the economic opportunities to go to our New Mexicans, particularly those that have unique ideas and creative approaches. Like Sawmill Market, we know that it takes an investment to make that happen. So we're devoting over $10 million to provide the economic resources to make these projects a reality and bring people's dreams to life. So we're very excited about the potential of doing that on all three projects. What we're seeing here is ground floor of restaurant, retail, and an exciting connection to the street, because that's an important part of urban development. So here you can really see the movement in this building through those layers of stratification and the exciting architecture of this building. Here's the next building. This is our multi-family building. Once again, it follows some of the same ideology in terms of stratification layers. You can see how the building is sort of broken, like you would actually see a mesa and the crevices in a mesa. And so the architecture brings light deep into the building. Once again, we'll have ground floor spaces. We'll also have some co-working spaces here in this district to provide opportunities to incubate some of our New Mexican businesses as well. So that'll all be part of this beautiful collection of buildings. And the last one is the Chaco Residences. And here, this is a little bit of a different geological formation. It represents the kind of geological thrust that you see in our volcanic geology formations, best illustrated with places like Shiprock. And so here you see beautiful layers of stone, sort of a building cascading down. These buildings, once again, all have wonderful urban spaces at the ground floor. Just another view of the building. And here's a bird's eye connection of those buildings. You'll see a triangular space on the upper right-hand section of the drawing, and that represents a plaza, so that all of the spaces that abut the plaza, whether it be wine bars, whether it be restaurants, those will all spill out to these public areas. This is open to the general public. These are beautiful environments where you can have a cup of coffee, have a glass of wine, have a nice dinner, enjoy the beautiful environment that we have here in New Mexico in this very exciting, stimulating environment. So this represents our projects. This is phase 2, as I say. It's about a $200 million investment. We are asking for your support with our IRB and LEDA applications. We think that these projects will make a huge difference for our city to attract employment here, to attract the type of investment in the community we want to see, and hopefully raise the bar for the rest of the state. I think there's a great opportunity here to use these projects as a springboard to seeing our state move forward. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to come and present these projects to you this evening. And I stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. I don't have a question, but just watching this presentation, it's exciting, and I'm so pleased how much you have contributed to our local community. Chaco has been a success, and we bring our out-of-state friends to Sawmill Market every time we have out-of-state friends. And I'm excited to, as the Bernalillo County, as a commissioner for Bernalillo County, to partner in terms of helping to elevate our community and create richer experiences, more opportunities, and I think it's a positive step in the right direction. With that, are there any other questions or comments?
I do.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Commissioner Biscotti.
Yeah. You know, I don't have any questions either. I just want to kind of echo what Commissioner Benson said, and I have to tell you, one of my favorite days to do things is to go to a museum, and it's all walking distance. Go to a museum, go to Sawmill Market, get something to eat, cross the street, go up to the rooftop and get something to drink at the Chaco Hotel. And so, yeah, I love what you do with your properties, and there really is, as you're describing each drawing, it's like, wow, you know, he's really into like the artistic and having it blend into the environment and the history. And I really appreciate that. You know, it shows that you put a lot of care into this, and it really does create an environment where people come out. You know, it's a destination where you can spend a whole day and walk around and, you know, just do all this great stuff. And it's a great place for visitors, tourists, as well as us locals. So I appreciate your work. I really do.
Thank you so much. It's inspiring to create projects like this. You know, we're facing a lot of interesting economic challenges right now with rising inflation and rising costs and interest rates that have doubled in the last year. So to create these projects really can only happen with a private-public partnership. So again, we're so appreciative of the county's support over the years and making these dreams happen. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Commissioner Quezada, just a second. Commissioner O'Malley had asked to speak.
Okay.
If I can get this thing to work. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And, you know, obviously I've known Jim a long time and been aware of his plans for the area for a long time. I just recently got on the board of the Land Trust. It's one of the largest property owners in the area. Of course, its focus is on affordable housing. That's its mission. We're looking at probably over, I think, 36 acres of property, some of which still needs to be developed. And the challenges there, of course, is keeping housing affordable, and also keeping, hopefully, a challenge is to keep retail affordable for community members that want to start little businesses there. And that has been a challenge because costs have risen, not just in terms of rents and that sort of thing. The Land Trust was established many, many years ago, almost 20 years ago, and it was blighted. We were able to get funding from the federal government to do a lot of cleanup. It was an area that nobody wanted to invest in. And so fortunately, the location is close to Old Town. So we, as a community, worked very hard, volunteered many hours. I spent almost 10 years of my early years working on getting that project underway and acquiring more land. So there's just a few things. I think whenever there's a proposal like this, and I'm sure that Mr. Long can appreciate this, that, you know, it's the details, right, in terms of what the deal is. And I think that I'm going to certainly do a deeper dive into this. This is an inducement resolution. We're asking for quite a bit of subsidy. The only reason, actually, and I told Jim that I was even considering even looking at a IRB for the area or sponsoring it. I mean, I just one vote here. Sponsoring it was because of his vision and because of his commitment to high-quality development. It is unique. These aren't chains. These are well-designed properties. We don't see that very often, and so I think that's important, and that represents a very big investment. So I just wanted to add a couple things. So there's still some understandings that need to be that we have to get to in terms of the deal itself or the application itself. And to me, it is a balance, right? Because this is a straightforward retail development. There's no affordable housing in the deal. It's multifamily. It's all market. And we have to look at a little bit closer at that. The other thing, and Jim, you're going to be presenting to the trust on the 17th of November to look at to represent the project. And as you know, coming up, we are going to be looking at traffic circulation. We're having, with success, brings a lot of traffic. It is a destination, and I think that's exciting. However, we're having a lot of problems with traffic in the area because the residents are right next door. So we need to work together to deal with that traffic circulation pattern and look for resources to do that as well. So I am supporting the inducement, as I said. I just think that we need to do a deeper dive here and make very clear what the deal is, not in terms of transparency and what that means in terms of either loss of tax income for the county and what the revenue generated, where it's going and that sort of thing. So thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. Commissioner Quesada.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think some of the points that have been made through this development are key, because it's not just about, bringing more people to the area, but bringing more business opportunities to the area for local businesses. For somebody who travels a lot and also works in the movie and film industry, I just did a movie in Portland, and the movie put us downtown Portland. Although we shot outside of Portland, it was nice to be able to stay somewhere close where we were going to go have dinner at night at local places, where we were looking at seeing what Portland was all about. And we weren't at this, some off the freeway, extended stay where you normally get that, through the comedy business, because it's an affordable issue. But a lot of the actors in Breaking Bad are, they were always sent and put up at Uptown. And, Uptown's a very successful place for, the city of Albuquerque. But, it's the Apple Store. It's, it's California Pizza Kitchen. It's, it's all these chains that downtown Albuquerque don't have, right? They don't have Little Anita's up there. They don't have the Hacienda in downtown. They're not selling Native American jewelry and all these other things that when the people come to work here, they want to be able to experience that on the day off. And, unless you come from a production with a huge budget where you can stay at Hotel Chaco, because you have to have a big budget to stay at Hotel Chaco, and that's okay. We love that. We love the fact that we have those high-end hotels down there also. But I think some of the major things that you're doing, I think the extended stay is really going to draw the film and television industry to the downtown area, and that's where they actually want to stay. So, like Commissioner O'Malley says, the devil's in the details, but, and I also have a concern about traffic, just because I go there a lot and I just can't find a parking spot. And so I'm being very selfish about that, but I probably could imagine what the residents around there are going through, but I know you have a game plan. You always do, Mr. Long. So, I definitely support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Madam Chair, Barboa.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I feel like I'm learning a lot. I love your design. Before you said Battleship, I was like, that's Battleship. I think your folks who are designing that are incredible and smart, and I love that it's so New Mexican. And I guess I look at, even from the aerial view or think about, and it starts to feel like this is made for that reason, which I know we need. We need tourism. It sustains I think that's what it sustains our communities. And I just think of like Commissioner Piscotti was saying, right? Like, I want to go there. I want to enjoy it. Feels like with all of these huge hotels around that, there might not be a place that I can actually get into. But I guess that's just, maybe some of that I need to not worry about. It's not my district, but I do, we're all concerned about all the areas. I'm appreciative of Commissioner O'Malley talking about the affordable housing. My niece right now, her and her partner live there. They moved there to be close to the action. And I was like, oh, it's sort of cool. It already is this more sort of millennial place. But she said, of course, like everybody's rents, their rents went up $400 a month. And so they're paying well over $1,400 a month for a one-bedroom apartment down near Sawmill. So I guess I just worry, but like future, if that's now, what does it mean in a few years from now? What does it mean once all these, high-end places are built? What does that mean for our communities? They're trying to live there. My grandpa, my dad, and all my uncles worked at the original Sawmill. So I do feel like I have a little piece of my raising there. I guess last I would say that I guess so traffic is definitely an issue. That's the first thing I was thinking of. But is there I don't see plans for parking in this development. Will these hotels have like their own maybe underground parking or?
Great question, Madam Chair. And you're right. Each one of these buildings will have its own contained parking. But we'll have over 2,000 parking spaces in the district. In fact, that's how many we have today. But not everybody, recognizes that you can park in any of these building lots. So in the next few weeks, we're actually putting up parking signs that kind of brand the parking in the district. So you'll be able to park in any of the lots that we have there. But we're going to maintain over 2,200 parking spaces is what we'll have, but these buildings will have spaces as well. But the buildings are going to be brought up to the edge of the street, so you're not going to see a long area of asphalt parking here. You're really going to see beautiful facades that come up to the street, just like you would have in any great urban location anywhere in the world. We haven't designed buildings like that for the most part here in New Mexico. Although in Santa Fe we have it, and frankly in Old Town we have it there too. So it's kind of interesting that we have these important historical precedents for that. But parking will be very important, and we're thrilled to have the Sawmill Land Trust that will be dedicated to affordability, forever, right next door.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Yeah, I just wanted to address the issue of affordability because it is a very big deal, and it is a real crisis that we have in this community. And we are challenged as the trust to create more of it and to keep it affordable. And that has been something that is very important to me as I get back into the organization to really make sure that our mission is carried out. We are the last essentially holdout there. If you want, it's basically an area that is dedicated to that. We need to make sure that it is, and that's something that's very important to me. All of the properties around there, as you can imagine, have really, first of all, the area itself has kept its values. It has not gone up. It's not gone down. And now, of course, the values have really increased because of actually a lot of the investment, not just from the trust, but of course the investment, the private investment that's occurred. The idea, of course, behind the whole thing and we had thought about this many, many years ago, bring in public investment in terms of housing, bring the housing there, and that will encourage private investment. And, kudos to Jim, who saw that, yes, this is going to happen. He acquired many properties around there. He banked them for a while until such time as it was ready for, to build. And now he sees that's important too. So I realize our challenge there. I am certainly going to do everything I can to because we have people that worked very, very hard to make this whole area change. It was through that initial work and investment to make that change, and they should have an opportunity, all the folks there, to be able to have a space for business if they want to, have a business space, and also a place where they can have an affordable place to live. So, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. Yes, Commissioner Piscotti.
Thank you. Just one more comment. I think this has sort of been hinted around, but I just want to say, I feel so safe in the Sawmill neighborhood, and I think with your properties, it really lifts up the community. And I haven't seen any statistics, but I am guessing that crime is lower in that community, and I would really love to. My vision is that by building these properties, by lifting up that area, that will spread out even farther into the community and lift it all up and lower crime in that area. It feels like with people being out and businesses being open and, people walking their dogs, it just seems like it really brings the community together, lifts it up, and it seems, like crime is really low in that area. I've never felt threatened at all, just walking, even at night, it just seems very safe. And I think
it is very safe, and it's very welcoming to all demographics. And so we see young mothers with a baby in a stroller. We see the viejitos in the neighborhood that come. We see the businessman in the suit. We see the young teenagers having a nice, safe night out, to your point. And the more housing that we create, the more eyeballs that we have on the streets, that's something called defensible space. And that's why you don't have the crime. And that's why you have to have the housing. And Commissioner O'Malley was, a tremendous leader in bringing that housing to this district. Now we have hundreds of units there through the Sawmill Land Trust, and now we'll have a few more. But that's how you create safe environments. Thank you for recognizing that.
Thank you, Mr. Long. And also, I tip my hat to Commissioner O'Malley in the Sawmill district. I think it's an example of how, when it's done right, you can have development that produces beauty and commerce and affordable housing, and we need more of it. And it needs to be done right, and we definitely need affordable housing. But the worst thing you can do to make housing affordable is to restrict more creation, because then there's the supply and demand law comes into play. And so thinking about Sawmill before it was developed and seeing where it is now, it's a gem in our city. And I was actually involved in some of the financing for the construction for those homes when I was at U.S. Eagle Credit Union. So, and I think it's a success story, and I look forward to this next step in the success.
Well, thank you. And one just last thing, I'd like to recognize county staff and Marcos Gonzalez in particular, because Marcos and the team have done a tremendous job in really helping us and guiding us through the project, bringing that conduit together. This staff has worked tirelessly to make things happen in our community, and Marcos and the team are just doing a marvelous job for you. So I wanted to recognize Marcos. Thank you, Marcos. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Anything else?
Just can't do without the team, so thankful to have them. So that's it from the staff perspective. So.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, I do want to also thank Marcos. There's always a balance with these sort of things. It's like, protecting our tax base, if you will, and making sure that there's the rate of return that we're looking at. That's a big balancing act, and I appreciate the work that you've done, and I know that you're going to continue those conversations with the applicant. And again, this is an inducement resolution, and I would like to move approval.
Second. Madam Clerk, would you call the vote?
Yes, sir. Commissioner O'Malley?
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada?
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti?
Aye.
Madam Chair Barboa?
Aye.
Vice Chair Benson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Vote passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. All right, next item, adoption resolution. Madam Clerk, please provide the resolution numbers for items 7A through 7D. Sorry, 8.
7D.
Oh, thank you.
On the consent agenda.
Thank you. I skipped 7D from the consent agenda.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. So there was a misnumbering on the script. So 7D is actually 8E. So
Okay, 8D. Thank you, Julianne.
yes. I'm sorry, 8E as in Edward, yes.
8E. Thank you. Okay, and all right, for that item, is Mr. Tafoya still here?
Mr. Chair, can I go through the numbers?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For item 8A, AR 2022-117. Item 8B, AR 2022-118. Item 8C, AR 2022-119. 8D, AR 2022-120. And item 8E, AR 2022-121.
Thank you. Mr. Tafoya, I jumped the gun a little bit. You'll be at the end of these 8s.
I'm sorry, say again?
You'll be at the end of these 8s. We're starting off with 8A.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll be available.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your patience. All right, 8A, the 56th Legislature, first session, 2023, capital outlay request to the state of New Mexico. Mr. Clay Campbell to present.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Clay Campbell, Chief of Staff to the County Manager, here to present our 2023 capital outlay resolution to the state of New Mexico for capital outlay funding projects. We have about 34 requests, new requests in total from all divisions and all project types, public safety, public works, as well as recreation. Those all add up to about $59 million worth of new requests that are collectively matched by approximately $89 million in previous capital outlay funding, general obligation bond funding, some federal grants, impact fees, as well as the general fund. So we always try to approach state legislators with our capital outlay requests with some money in our other hand as part of our new funding requests. And of course, you know, horizontal and vertical construction costs have increased between 2 to 3 times since COVID has started. So we really tried to focus on those partially funded projects that could really benefit from supplemental state funding. This resolution also contains some requests that nonprofit organizations will be making with Bernalillo County support, and those are outlined in Section 4 of the resolution. Additionally, Section 5, we have many reauthorization requests. Many of these are just requests for extra time. Increased project costs, as I mentioned earlier, make it harder to reach the funding finish line oftentimes. So in these cases, more time is needed for some of those projects to secure the additional funding. I do have one minor floor amendment that was just confirmed yesterday in a meeting with Public Works and Commissioner Barboa. So item 1D, instead of being a to be determined amount, we'd like to make that for $400,000 and to also incorporate acquisition of real estate in the wording. I stand for any questions you may have about the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Any questions?
I'd like to move the amendment for approval.
Second.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can you call the vote?
Yes, sir. Commissioner O'Malley?
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada?
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti?
Aye.
Madam Chair Barboa?
Aye.
And Mr. Chair Benson?
Aye.
Thanks.
The vote passes. Okay, Mr. Gonzalez, you're up again. Economic Development.
Mr. Chair.
I think we have to pass I just moved the amendment. We have to pass, I moved
Oh,
to.
thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry, it's okay.
Make the correction. So now is there a motion to move the vote? Thank you.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, can you call the vote again for the passing of this?
Commissioner O'Malley? Yes. Commissioner Quesada?
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti? Aye. Madam Chair Barboa?
Aye.
Vice Chair Benson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Industrial Revenue Bond Notice of Intent for Sawmill Belmont Properties, Chaco Residences.
And Mr. Chair, just to clarify for the record, the last item that we adopted was the Notice of Intent for the LIDA, and then the next 3 items will be for the IRBs associated with the project, just to be clear.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, the Economic Development staff recommends the approval of an inducement resolution authorizing the Bernalillo County Commission to approve an industrial revenue bond application on behalf of Sawmill Belma Properties to construct, acquire, and install improvements, equipment, and other real estate personal property for Sawmill Chaco residences as an extended stay hotel. I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions?
Mr. Vice Chair, I think for the public, I think it might, so there's always the question of, right, issuing the bonds, and of course, we're not responsible for paying them back. However, the other piece is looking at how they do get paid back. So I just want to make sure that that's what this is right now. These particular things are just about the amounts, right? And then I just want to know that the public is like, it is a lot of money, but it's not our responsibility to pay the bonds back.
Madam Chair and Commissioner O'Malley, correct. The amount is, Mr. Chair, sorry, is $63.5 million, and that IRB amount that the public sees is money that the Sawmill Belma Group will be financing, and through the IRB process, we're only providing certain tax exemption. The county is not responsible for paying these bonds or responsible for our credit is not at risk either.
Okay, thank you. Move approval.
Second. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti.
Aye.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Aye.
Vice Chair Benson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Vote passes. All right, industrial revenue bond notice of intent for Sawmill Belma Properties Sawmill Hotel Project. Mr. Gonzalez.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, the Economic Development staff recommends the approval of an inducement resolution authorizing the Bernalillo County Commission to approve an industrial revenue bond application on behalf of Sawmill Belma Properties LLC to construct, acquire, and install improvements, equipment, and other real and personal property for Sawmill Hotel Project. I'll stand for any questions.
Vice Chair, move approval.
Second. Any other questions? All right, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti.
Aye.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Aye.
Vice Chair Benson.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Industrial revenue bond notice of intent for Sawmill Belma Properties Sawmill Mixed Use Project. Mr. Gonzalez.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, the Economic Development staff recommends the approval of an inducement resolution authorizing the Bernalillo County Commission to approval of an inducement resolution authorizing the Bernalillo County Commission to approve an industrial revenue bond application on behalf of Sawmill Belma Properties LLC to construct, acquire, and install improvements, equipment, and other real and personal property for the Sawmill mixed-use space. I'll stand for questions.
Chair, move approval.
I'll second. Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Hold on. Yes, Commissioner.
I just want to say thank you, Marcos, and your team. I see that economic development is all over tonight's agenda. This is your night, Marcos. Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you, members of the Commission, for hearing all of our items.
Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti.
Aye.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Aye.
Vice Chair Benson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Vote passes. Thank you again, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you, Mr. Long and your team. All right, next item, 8E, back to the Planning and Development Services from the consent agenda, property nuisance abatement, 1543 Bridge Southwest. Mr. DeFoya.
Good evening, Vice Chair Benson, Commissioners, Luke Tafoya with the Planning Development Services Department. May I share a photo?
Yes.
If you lift it all the way up. Yep.
This property has been under enforcement and, well, let me back up. A fire occurred back in March of like 2.5 years ago. And our staff has been working with the property owner ever since this occurred to try and get this resolved. And Ms. Starr has been great to deal with. They've cleaned up the property, they've boarded it up, and as our building staff have requested, get an analysis, an engineering analysis done on this structure because the roof is gone, and that's part of the support of the walls. And in that report, they are concerned about collapse. And I have other photos I can share, but this is current. And with, the revitalization effort on Bridge Boulevard, we're really trying to address properties such as this. It is, yes, somewhat secure, but with the structural integrity compromised, we really feel like this is a life safety issue that needs to be addressed. We have brought this through the nuisance abatement hearing. The nuisance abatement hearing officer actually gave this more time, an extra 2 months for the property owner to find resources or whatever it is to address this problem. And I am sympathetic that she intends to get this dealt with, but I am concerned with the ability to actually get it done. And like I said, we've been giving this over 2.5 years. We actually, the property in the foreground, you can just see weeds. That is where the fire started. And we took this through the nuisance abatement hearing process, and this commission approved us to go through and abate that property. So that one's been cleaned. And we were just trying to work with this property owner over the last few years or a couple of years to get this addressed. And we're kind of at that point where, okay, we got to do something. And so that is where we're at now. And so if you all decide to provide more time, that is fine. We'll take direction from the commission. If you prefer to or decide to defer this for a month, we'll bring this back and see if you're ready at that time. I'll stand for questions.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Commissioner O'Malley asked first. Just a second, Commissioner Kutsata.
I'll go ahead and, since this is his district, I'll go ahead and let him speak first. It's fine.
All right, Commissioner Kutsata.
So, I think we're at the end of this road here, but I do want to be able to provide them with to see what they can come up with in the next 30 days, and at that point, we'll have to side with with staff. So if they're still in the audience, I'm here. I work for you, but it has been a couple of years, and so eventually, we have to do what we need to do for that. What's best for the community. So with that being said, I want to be able to give you 30 days to see what you can do and what you can bring forward. Because you're at the end of the road here, and so I'm hoping that at this point, things are going to change and that things are going to move forward. And if not, after 30 days, then I'm going to side with what the staff has to do in order to really look at how we're improving Bridge Boulevard. As we're putting a lot of money into Bridge Boulevard, and we're trying to turn around that community and give them bigger and better opportunities, and we want it to look like the rest of the city. We want it to look nice. We want to be inviting for new business opportunities and small business opportunities. So with that being said, I hope you understand that I'm doing what I can, but I think that I'm willing to give you 30 days. So I'm willing to do a 30-day referral if I could get support from the rest of the commission. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. These are very difficult decisions to make, and you know, I've got a house now that's just down the block that's boarded up, and they're nuisances. They attract problems, people coming in and out, and especially in a neighborhood where you have other houses around, it's very, very, it's, you know, I consider it kind of dangerous too. It does cost, of course, to take a property down. I imagine that if the county would do it, is there a lien against a property when you do that, the cost of taking something down?
Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioner O'Malley, yes, there will be a lien placed on the property for the work done by the county.
Right, so quite frankly, sometimes that's a lot cheaper than going out and getting something yourself. But that said, you know, this is Commissioner Quesada's district. You know, if he's willing to give someone a few more days, that's fine, and I would support that. But I certainly understand the frustration of having a building like that could potentially be dangerous too. If somebody went in there, you know, that could be you could get sued as a property owner. So you have to be very careful about that too. So, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. Commissioner Quesada, I'll second your motion. Unless, Commissioner O'Malley, did you second the motion?
Oh, no,
I don't think time is of the essence at this point. It's been 2.5 years, but I think enough time has passed that we do need to see something. So I will second the motion to delay this. And it was by 30 days, Commissioner Quesada? And
yes,
Mr. Takoya, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, could you call the vote?
Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti.
Aye.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Aye.
Vice Chair Benson.
Aye.
Thank you.
The vote passes. All right, County Manager, concurrence of the Bernalillo County Metropolitan Detention Center Jail Administrator Chief, Julie Morris-Baca, to present.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I stand before you tonight to respectfully request your concurrence of Mr. Jason Jones's appointment to the next MDC Chief. As I've shared with you all along, we decided that we would do a nationwide search. We hired a very good consultant. We conducted interviews. We conducted second interviews. We also took the candidates on a tour of the MDC so they would get a really good idea of what they would be getting into. Asked a lot of questions, did extensive background checks, and I personally called every single reference. So I just want you all again to be reassured that you know, I surrounded myself with some really good people while we were conducting the selection. Mr. Clay Campbell, my Chief of Staff, Daniel Robertson, who is one of our county attorneys, and former MDC Chief Greg Reese. So it wasn't a decision that I made on my own. I made sure to include you all as I was going along, asked questions, invited interviews you all to, if you wanted to have an interview with Mr. Jones. So we went through that, and I want to thank Commissioner Piscotti and Madam Chair Barboa. They wanted to get to know him a little bit. I thought the discussion was good. They met with him virtually. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for that. I really appreciate it. And just to tell you a little bit about his history here, he has 27 years of varied and progressively responsible experience in the correctional field. He started off as a corrections officer and worked his way up to warden. So at least 10 years of experience as a warden facility administrator. I believe you've been the warden for 12, correct? Yes. You're a demonstrated leader who leads by example. When I called his references, things that I heard is he's hands-on, he goes to the back, He speaks to the inmates as well. He wants to make sure that they're doing okay. He communicates with the corrections officers. He's not afraid to go do cell checks. It's just, it's something that I think that we've all been looking for. We've met with the union today. We had a very good meeting with the union, and they are very supportive. They're on board. And I want to personally thank Ms. Rosanna Otero, who took the helm when after Chief Richardson left. And she did a very good job just keeping the operations going. We still had a lot of challenges, and we didn't skip a beat under her leadership. I do want to personally thank her publicly for all that she did, and she's still going to stick with us, thank goodness, and we'll be working with Mr. Jones as the administrative director there at the MDC. So again, like I say, he's got lots of experience. And just to let you know again, the concurrence of the MDC chief appointment, it's not required by the charter or the county code, but the two previous chiefs under my term as county manager, I brought before you because of references, just to kind of make sure that the references, because of references to an invalid resolution requiring concurrence that was never codified. So for consistency and consideration, I'm respectfully asking for your concurrence this evening. And Mr. Jones is here to answer any questions, and I stand for any questions as well. Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Vice Chair and Commissioners.
Thank you, Madam County Manager. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Sure. Commissioner Piscotti.
Oh, thank you.
And then followed by Commissioner O'Malley and Commissioner Barboa.
Great. Mr. Jones, it's good to see you again. The last time I saw you was on Zoom. I'm going to ask you again, red or green?
Green.
Awesome.
I had it last night.
You got the state question down. Thank you. My other question is, you've probably heard about the oversight board. And I know we talked a little bit about this, and can you talk a little bit again about your experience having oversight in a detention facility?
Well, it depends on what type of facility it is, whether it's a contract monitor who's there to visually come in and out every day to see, or if it's not an on-site monitor, but per se an office who calls and checks in with you, wants to know about any issues, wants you to provide them information on any kind of serious incidents. Of course, you meet with them, you talk with them, you provide them whatever information they need. There's different forms, but yes, it's very common in corrections to have oversight.
Yeah, I seem to recall you saying that you believe strongly in transparency.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're fine with oversight. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like some clarification on some things because so my understanding, Manager Marcus Baca, is that you offered the job to Mr. Jones. He is essentially hired. It's my understanding that he's moving in. And so this is a concern I have in terms of concurrence, right? It's not really required. And we do two things. We hire and fire the manager, or we hire and fire, that's our right, to the county attorney. Those are the two things that we're responsible for. And now it seems really odd that, that we get into this because it's already done. So I just feel very weird about that because it's not required. And I think that puts, first of all, as a commissioner, I am not interested in hiring and firing a chief. I'm not interested in doing that for a fire chief. I'm not interested in doing the MDC chief. There's no question that we're responsible for basically the financial health of the entire county in terms of like what our ability, maybe if we get sued or whatever. But so let's just say we don't concur, and maybe Representative, not Representative, maybe Ken, I keep calling you Representative, but you're not. That would be Ken Martinez. Maybe you could explain that a little bit, because what happens if someone's already been hired, we don't concur, so what does that mean?
Thank you, and that's a good question. I think the county manager is acting completely appropriately and transparently by placing this on the agenda for concurrence, because the prior two we went through a concurrence. I believe being overly cautious is better than doing too much is better than not doing enough. There was a resolution that required concurrence for, I'll read it out loud, it was for the Public Information Officer, Human Resource Director, Director of Economic Development, and the Jail Administrator. And that was enacted, and these things happened. How many?
It was rescinded too, wasn't it?
Well, they occurred concurrently. So this was enacted right after the Urban County Charter was enacted. But there was provision in there that said that upon passage, all necessary amendments will be made to Ethics Ordinance, Employment Relations Ordinance, and Employment Relations Rules and Regulations. But to further complicate matters, the Urban County Charter also provides that you can reorganize by resolution of the commission. So was this a resolution of the commission reorganizing on the concurrence issues? The good news is, by actions today in the Urban County Charter amendments and the legislation proposed by Ms. Julianne Baca, it'll be clarified. The cautious way to proceed would be to do a concurrence, just because the county manager wants to err on the side of caution. So I think that's the right thing to do. The interesting note on this is, you asked a really good question. I'm reading the prior one. It says that concurrence shall be granted unless there is good cause presented to the board. So concurrence isn't just a little like we agree or disagree. You'd have to have cause not to concur. And it also says if no action is taken by the board at the next regularly scheduled meeting, concurrence will be conclusively presumed. So the concurrence article that was drafted back then may or may not apply. We're being cautious by bringing it to the commission for concurrence, and it would be conclusively presumed that there's no action, but it would also require good cause shown why you would withhold concurrence.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is if there is not an action to concur, that really it doesn't really matter because the county managers made the decision, and so concurrence is like, yeah, it's just inferred, it's already happening, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that to me is a little confusing. What I want to sort of like clarify here, and this is something that we what are our responsibilities and our duties, and I really see, if we don't like what the manager has done, she's at will. And 3 commissioners can say, see ya. And if we don't like what the county attorney has done, we can say the same thing. But these people are under the county manager. They're employees, essentially, of the county manager. We don't have say whether or not they get, whether or not they're going to be fired or hired or whatever. That's not our job. So I just think it's kind of odd that we would concur on some of these things. I just think it's almost like, why are we doing that? So, yeah, I'm having some problems with that because I just don't, quite frankly, that's not my responsibility to do that, I sort of feel. So that's my position. Thank you.
Is there any action that you'd like to take, Commissioner O'Malley?
Well, I think that we should withdraw this because I don't want that's not my responsibility to hire and fire a MDC chief. It's not the same, it just isn't. So I don't want that responsibility. My responsibility is to, so yeah, I would just recommend withdrawal and see what happened there.
Thank you. Commissioner Barboa, you're after Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, I appreciate this discussion. I just want to first say, yeah, I met Mr. Jones, now Chief Jones. I was very thankful for that opportunity. I feel much better after having been able to talk to him and hear his view on things and his commitments to this job and his full awareness about what he's walking into. So yeah, I agree, and I don't have a problem with even. I agree that this concurrence also after the fact just doesn't really make sense to me. Why we would confer after the fact, and I just wanted to clear up. I think I had brought in concerns because I wasn't allowed. I mean, I was able to, like County Manager said, interview, but not really interview. I was able to meet and get to know Mr. Jones, which I'm thankful for, but it was also already after the fact of him being hired. So I guess for me, and maybe, I have something to learn as a sort of newish commissioner, but for me, I think because it is such a big item of our budget, it's, and all the things MDC are huge items on our budget, and that is what we're responsible for, that I would have been happy to have been more informed about the process, who's involved in the process, and that opportunity, not to even concur after the fact that the hire's been done. But I'm thankful for the leadership. I think it is important for us to have knowledge, and we talked a lot about, and I was thankful for Mr. Jones, or Chief Jones, comments around, we talked a lot last time about the commission being the oversight for the jail, and that was sort of the message that we gave last meeting, that it is up to commissioners to be oversight for the jail. And so I'm also getting confused in roles when we're one meeting saying we're the oversight, now we're saying we're possibly not responsible, but then at the end of the day we are responsible. So I guess I just want to, I've been very involved in what happens at MDC because I care, and it's such a huge part of our public safety. We all know across the country that, our jail is, across the country, jails are the biggest behavioral health systems. And so I was also thankful to hear Chief Jones' reactions to what it means to be the biggest behavioral health system in our county and really in our state. So it is a big opportunity. Again, I'm thankful that I feel like from the short meeting I got to have with Mr. Jones, but I just wanted to make those comments and welcome Mr. Jones. Sorry you're walking into a little bit of this confusion. I'm thankful and want to be in close communication with you, and not to look over your shoulder, but just because I am a concerned commissioner that wants to see our county thrive for our staff and for inmates, for all of us. So I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. Commissioner O'Malley, I believe you made a motion to remove the item. I did. Correct. Is there a second? Okay, the motion fails. Commissioner Barbeau, your hand is up. Okay, motion fails. Next item is there a motion to provide concurrence? Actually, I would make that motion. All right, I'll second that after Madam Chair. I'll second. Welcome, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
But vote first. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to make a comment before my vote. I don't feel it's my responsibility to in this area. That's it. I also, want to welcome Mr. Jones, but I'm going to vote no because I don't feel it's my responsibility. It's already happened. Thank you. No.
Commissioner Quesada.
Welcome, Mr. Jones, and we'll talk. And oversight is something that we will be involved with. And so I vote aye.
Commissioner Piscotti. Aye. Madam Chair Barboa.
Aye.
Vice Chair Benson.
I concur. Welcome. Vote passes. Okay, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you, Madam County Manager. Thank you very much. Economic Development, termination of Lowe's Home Centers, Inc., Industrial Revenue Bond and Associated Industrial Development Project.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, the Economic Development staff recommends the adoption of an action memo to approve the termination conditions of the Lowe's Home Centers, Inc. Industrial Revenue Bond Project and the related ABQ Office Boulevard Operating Associates Limited Partnership Industrial Development Project, and to authorize the county manager to execute the IRB and IDP termination documents, including any assignments and transfers of property required by them and any other documents deemed unnecessary for the termination of the IRB and IDP, and to authorize the county manager to exercise the clawback collection provisions when allowed by the IRB and IDP termination documents, and to take any actions necessary to protect the county's rights under them. And so this item terminates the Lowe's Centers IRB that the county did in 2012. Like many businesses during COVID, Lowe's has transferred to 100% a remote situation. So they no longer need the facility and are terminating it. During the course of the project, they created over 300 jobs in the area. So they have met all of the requirements for the IRB, all the reporting requirements, paid all their PILT, and they are also outside of the 10 years clawback provision that was within the IRB. So this will just allow the county manager to execute the termination documents.
Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to move approval.
I second that. And just to clarify, I did speak with Mr. Gonzalez because I would hate to see an IRB be abused, and they did not. They fulfilled all of their obligations, and so this was the purpose. And now the business has moved in a different direction, but the county isn't left holding the bag in any way. So satisfied my curiosity. And are there any questions? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you call the vote?
Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
Commissioner Piscotti.
Aye.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Aye.
Vice Chair Benson.
Aye. Thank you. Vote passes. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. All right, discussion, County Manager, proposed Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners meeting scheduled for 2023. Julianne Baca to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, what I have before you tonight is a proposed 2023 schedule for our Board of County Commissioner meetings for next year. This is consistent with what we have done in the past with considerations for major holidays and major conferences throughout the year that you all will potentially attend. We also have a sponsored by Commissioner O'Malley, an additional county observed holiday for observing Indigenous Peoples Day in October of next year. So this is just for discussion, just for a presentation. It will return on the November 15th meeting for final adoption, and I will stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Malley.
Mr. Chair, so I was kind of surprised that we didn't have that as a holiday, and APS was off, the city of Albuquerque was off, and the county wasn't off. I don't know how the decisions are made around this. Someone said, well, we decided, that we would have Juneteenth be a day off. Well, I don't want to start this whole thing between Juneteenth and Indigenous Day. So I just said, look, can we just do Indigenous Day as well, so that we, this is, it's not one or the other. There's a very, very important, distinct, celebration or just acknowledgements of those days. So that's why I brought this up. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
No, I move for approval.
Second.
Mr. Chair, just for clarification, this is just for introduction, so We will note your motion and second for the next meeting.
Oh, so it's not introduction. Okay.
Yeah, mark those down.
Yes.
You got dibs? All right. Thank you both. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I know you're about to announce the next meeting. And so I know that we've been discussing that, here in District 26, which there's a Senate seat open in District 26, and it kind of, falls into my district, about 35% of my district. And I was wondering when we were going to fill that position. I know that they were trying to put a meeting together, and I know I talked to Chair Barboa, and I just don't have it on my calendar. Do you have that when it's supposed to take place?
Madam Chair.
Well, I had spoke with Julianne Baca and proposed November 18th, and she informed me today that she had received that doesn't work for you, Commissioner Quesada. So I don't know, we need to find a date that works for at least 3 of us. And yeah, somewhere in that time range.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah. Commissioner
Yeah,
O'Malley.
since we're discussing this, this is, I'm going to get the exact percentage from, the district, because my understanding is it's 19% of Commissioner Quesada's district, but we'll just double check on that.
Okay.
But this is, my district, and I know that there's lots of conversation back and forth about this. I would really appreciate the consideration of the board in terms of setting this meeting up. I think it's important to be able to accept applications and give people time to apply. Clearly, there are some folks that have the advantage because they already knew that this was going to happen, but a lot of people did not. So I think it's important to do that, and so I appreciate consideration for that. It looks like, around that time, I think makes sense, and so I will be in discussion with the chair about that, who sets that meeting. But so anyway, I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Biscotti.
I know I'm not available on the 18th, but I think the bigger issue here is that this really isn't following what our standard procedure has been. We generally do an appointment meeting within 2 weeks of a resignation. And I know that people did know this resignation was coming down the pipeline, and a few people have reached out to us wanting to apply for this position. So I don't see a reason to delay. And in fact, I would like to call a meeting for October 31st pursuant to Rule 3 of the Rules of Procedure for Regular Administrative, Special and Emergency Meetings of the Bernalillo County Board of County Commissioners. And my assistant, Joe Noriega, has a letter that I have signed. I think he put my signature, or I will sign it now. And so if anyone else would like to sign that, we can just get this meeting going according to how we've always done these meetings.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Quesada.
Yeah, I would definitely add my signature to that letter, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Quesada. I'll add it too.
Wow,
I've
that's
never
really
met-
inconsiderate, Mr. Vice Chair. It really is.
How is it
And
inconsiderate?
it is inconsiderate. This is my district. It is my district, the majority of my district, and I've asked to be able to set this meeting. I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but I think it's disrespectful. And I don't know what the deal is here. Why there's this emergency, we're going to do it on the 31st. Why? Because the person who wants this seat has said that that's what he wants. So I don't think that's fair. And, I wouldn't do that. I have never done anything like that to anybody, any other person that's trying to, appoint, a person in their district. So, yeah, I'm very disappointed, and I'm really disappointed in Commissioner Piscotti doing something like this, which I think is extremely disrespectful and rude.
Commissioner O'Malley, I've never met Senator Candelaria, but I've read in the newspaper that he was resigning for a year, and I appreciate your perspective for not considering your wishes, but there's also residents in that district who want representation, and that's our job, is to appoint representation.
And that's the plan, Mr. Vice Chair. The issue is Senator, he has been MIA. I mean, he's not been, he showed up at the beginning of the session, and then he showed up in the middle of the session, and he hasn't been to any committee meetings or anything else like that. I have talked with the Senate leadership. There's nothing going on. There's no reason to have to rush that. So I really, the 31st is coming around the corner. I just don't think that's right. And, I mean, I question the ability for actually to get this done, to do something like that. I really question that ability to do that, because my understanding is the chair makes that decision. And, I just think it's very disrespectful. I would never do something like that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Barboa.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed. I've spoken to everybody on this commission about it. I've proceeded to try and be fair. I think there is so mistruths here in that both that if Commissioner Piscotti is saying people want to apply for it, then we have to get a date so that Julianne can send out an announcement so that people can apply. And now we're going to say we're going to give them literally 6 days. And not even that, because by the time Julianne gets to announce it, put it out there, put the requirements for the position, and you're going to give 6 days? I just can't even believe this conversation happening when the two incumbent legislators are both lawyers, they're incumbents. We're not even giving people, the community, a shot at trying to go for this seat when every other time, every other election, every other appointment, I hear how important that is to run, to give communities a shot at lawyers. And I was trying to be the most fair. I wasn't willing to go political on it and say we're going to push it to a time when Commissioner Piscotti wouldn't be able to vote on it. I wasn't willing to do that, even though there's a lot of community pressure to do so. And yet there's still this pressure by incumbent lawyers that no matter what, that Representative Mayes says, if that's the person that you're trying to push into this space, he still has the biggest shot to make it in this. Let's give community a chance. And on top of it, even if he didn't get the appointment, he'd still get to represent his district. So I was trying to be a fair chair and give space time, and not go into pushing it to a time when people that sit on this board right now wouldn't get to vote. I was trying to be fair and meet in the middle, because we all are getting emails, and maybe only myself as chair, from pressuring from both sides. But at this point, community hasn't even been aware. Just because they've announced it themselves on the news, we haven't been able to give out a process, make aware. There is no rush. I know we've done these quick appointments before because there's a rush because the legislature's starting tomorrow, but there's absolutely nothing that right now, I work at the legislature. I've worked every day at the legislature during session for the last 12 years, and they don't even vote during this time. So I'm flabbergasted that this commission would, in all the ways I'm trying to make this fair, just push against us. But I guess it's the will of the commission, and I just wanted to make sure folks understood that these talking points about rushing, I've told many, nobody's rushing me, but I guess somebody is, because they're gonna go over the authority that I tried to work fairly and meet in the middle. I agree it's disrespectful, and there goes the opportunity. And I just want to say, like, the, unspoken rules of the commission around these appointments, I think, go out the door with this. So I just, unwritten rules, I guess is what I'm going to say. So here we are, and congratulations.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Biscotti.
I just want to make it clear that I have no dog in this hunt when it comes to whoever the person is who's appointed. I don't really know. I've never.
You don't even have a list
excuse
of
me.
who else
Excuse me. Excuse me. I have the floor. Thank you. I've never done anything socially with Mr. Maestas or with his wife, who has been quite a topic of the emails that have been coming in. I have zero relationship with them. I live all the way on the east side, and yet I know we've done many of these appointment meetings, and there has never been this kind of pushback and trying to push it back to next year. I find it really offensive saying that, I don't know what people are really asking for, but somehow that I should not be a part of this process, and somehow saying that whoever is elected in the next election would have more of a valid voice than I do. I was elected by the majority of voters in my district, in my election, and I'm here to serve my 4 years. And so I think those emails that we've gotten have been very disingenuous and honestly filled with lies and manipulations. And I find it really offensive. I find it rude. I could go point by point through some of those emails and tell you what the lie is and just how unfair this whole thing has been. There's no reason to drag this out. We have just never done this. So that's why I think we just need to move on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Biscotti. Madam Chair, this is no disrespect to you. I have told you that I'd rather do this sooner than later, and I've had several constituents in my district on the west side who have shared their urgency for the funds appropriations and having representation right now, because even though it doesn't affect anybody, the money wouldn't be directly in my district. It benefits the west side and my constituents on the west side, which I'm listening to my supporters, and those are the voices that sounded the loudest to me, that resonated in terms of when I look at all the other appointments we've made. This one seems the most contentious. We've had several politicos contacting us, urging one way or another, and so more so than the other appointments we've had. And so I went back to my residents. Madam Chair, your hand is still raised.
Yeah, I just want to clear, there is no voting that happens until the legislature starts. And I just want to make note that, and I hope then, Julianne, please tomorrow send out that press announcement, because I hope that community has a chance at this. Now, at this point, this decision has meant that they'll have 5 days to be able to move. And so folks saying they're not moving politically when community hasn't even got a chance to see this. So I think all the more reason, since we're getting such high profile calls around this, all the more reason to actually give community a chance. But those are my thoughts, and welcome this.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Yes, Commissioner O'Malley.
Yeah, I just wanted to appreciate Commissioner Barboa's willingness to, again, it's going to, the issue was still going to, the date was still going to be within this commission. And there was pressure, of course, to put it into the next commission, and that's just the way things are, right? People will weigh in on pretty much everything on the decisions, and it is a political decision because we're talking about people who are political, and to say it's not, that's the way, that's a fact. So I just feel like that I just haven't had an opportunity to really talk to people, and I don't have an opportunity to decide. It made sense to do it at this time. But clearly, if I don't have the support to do it, and there's some ways to get around this, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. But to say I'm disappointed, it's very disappointing. As I said, it is my district with a legislative seat and also the Senate seat. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, announcement of the next commission meeting. Tuesday, November 15th, 2022, zoning meeting at 3 p.m., Ken Sanchez Commission Chambers. Tuesday, November 15th, 2022, Board of Finance meeting at 4 p.m. in the Ken Sanchez Commission Chambers. And Tuesday, November 15th, administrative meeting at 5 p.m., Ken Sanchez Commission Chambers. And if there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.